Through this haircut, I am going to show you a series of fundamental techniques that are used to create soft, seamless layers. These are the foundations of how to cut anyone's hair and can translate to a variety of hair types and textures. I will show you how to prepare the hair for the haircut, how to move the head around, and how to create the appropriate sections. You will learn how to cut effectively and efficiently. So the first thing we need to do is prepare our client's hair. So what that means is we want to make sure that we can see the hair very clearly, that the hair is manageable, that it doesn't have too much product in it, and that I can actually see the density, the weight, and the texture of the hair. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just prepare the hair. And the idea here is we're going to put in a little bit of product just to help support the hairstyle. So I don't want the product to get in the way of the haircut. I just want to help the hair be manageable and workable for me. So I don't want there to be too much hold, I don't want to expand the hair too much, and I don't want to shrink the hair too much either. I want it to just be a better version of itself. And what we're going to do is we're just going to wrap dry the hair. So what that means is I'm just going to take the blow dryer and the brush and I'm going to wrap that hair back and forth, so that there's no specific direction in the root. So as I'm working with this hair, I want to make sure that I'm working in the front, moving that hair around, wrapping that hair back and forth. Now, because this model's hair is not very textured, after I've done my root wrap and my leaf and my bevel and then lock that hair down, then we're just going to finish it by flat ironing. And as we continue to flat iron, I just want to make this hair just nice and smooth and condensed so that I'm not too distracted by the hair texture. So I'm going to bevel that hair down as I'm working. So I'm going to take that flat iron and give it a little bevel as I come through. So that way that hair is not kicking out. And I really want to be able to see a couple of things as I'm working. I want to be able to see the density of the hair. I want to be able to see the texture of the hair. And I also want to see the damage and the length. So I want to make sure that I'm really looking at her haircut very clearly. So I'm going to section the hair from the top of the crown to behind the ear. And we're going to take vertical sections. Now, I'm going to be taking that hair and I'm really just thinking about the roof of the hair. So I don't really care so much about that perimeter length. I'm really concerned about just that top layer. And what we're going to do is we're going to cut a concave layer through there. So what that means is by cutting a concave layer, I'm collapsing the shape. So I really want there to be no weight to those layers. And as I'm working, I'm just bringing that hair up into me. And if I need to get that elevation up a little higher, I might tilt that head back a little bit, making sure that I'm always cutting into my core. I don't want my shoulders coming up. I don't want them dropping down. I don't want to be bending at my waist. I really want to be standing the entire time of the haircut. So as I take those vertical sections, I'm bringing that hair up into me and always opening and closing my shears. At no point am I scraping or shattering the hair. So I'm really making sure to preserve the integrity of the hair shaft. So even though I'm creating a soft texture, I'm not damaging that end at all in that hair. Now, after I've cut these initial layers, and because I've over-directed them all to the center, there's going to be a bit of a corner to it. I'm going to have some corner around the ears. So I've maintained some length and I've maintained some density. Now, just because I want to continue to work technically, I'm going to take a horizontal section from that crown area. And I want to make sure that I'm dealing with just the balance of the hair. So again, we're just at the roof of the hair. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to work with that fulcrum of my blade, taking that horizontal section, maintaining that corner. So I have that concave that works to maintain some of the length and some of the density through the sides of the head. And as I'm working, I'm just going to make sure to never cut past my second knuckle. So that hair is condensed into those second knuckles. I don't want to be cutting in the area around here because if I do, that hair is going to fall out and it's going to have no tension. So I don't need to cut up here. I can lower my elevation very easily, but I'm able to do that because that hair is condensed between those two fingers. The first thing we're going to do as we're working through that front is I'm going to section from the parietal ridge down, and I'm going to clip that hair out of the way. The reason why I'm going to do that is because I want to protect her perimeter density and length from my haircut. Usually in long layers, we don't want to cut into the area that is her length. We want to work with the layers that live over top. So I'm just going to condense that hair on the top and get those sides out of the way so I have no danger of getting into that. And then from here, a lot of times when we're cutting that top section, we really lift that hair up. And what I want to do is I want to offer you an option of tilting that head forward. What that means, I can then elevate that hair to where I need it to be without actually having to go to the hair and lift it outside of my core area. So as you can see, the head is tilted forward, and I'm going to work in the same way I did in the back, just taking vertical sections, and then I can use that top section as my guide to help connect that length into her then angle, which we haven't even established yet. And I'm gonna work on that left side first, taking that vertical section and then over directing it into that center section. And as I'm carving it out, I'm maintaining that concave layer, coming through the hair, cutting through it, making sure that I can work and see exactly what I'm getting. Now, after I've done the left side, I'm then gonna do the right as well. And again, you'll notice I'm flipping the comb and I'm making sure to comb into my guide. I don't wanna comb the hair away from me. I always wanna bring the hair to me as I'm working. And I'm gonna use that back section as my guide and then come through and start to cut that. After I've done the surface of the hair, now what we wanna do is we wanna open up the angle around her face. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna take a section that mirrors her hairline. And I want to make sure to really carve that hair out around her face. Now, in order to do that, I have to really pay attention to body position. I'm gonna bring that hair all the way over across to the other side. And from there, just begin to carve that out, opening and closing. And as you'll notice, because I brought that hair all the way over to me, that I've been able to keep the length that lives in the front. Now, we have not yet addressed her perimeter length at all. All I'm trying to do is work on her top layers and now her angle around her face. As I continue, I'm gonna take diagonal sections working from the front hairline back. And you'll notice even when I'm working here, I move my client's head around all the time. So I'm not gonna walk back and forth. Instead, I'm gonna tilt her head, get the section, and then put her head back up. She is very easily able to move. It's when I start to move too much that my body begins to get tired and get worn out. So as you'll notice from this side, I am actually gonna flip my comb. I need to make sure that that comb is pointing in a different direction so that that way I have the space to work. Now from there, I wanna maintain the body position I worked on the other side, but I wanna reverse it. So I wanna bring it over to the other side, and I'm still gonna cut with my palm up. So I have my comb with the top of the comb being held, and I'm combing the hair up. Now in order to make space, what I'm doing is I'm pushing the head away from me. Now by pushing the head away from me, that enables me to be upright. If her head was tilted or straight up, then I would be working like this to try to get that angle. As opposed to when I'm working on that side, I can tilt her away and then work through and carve. So as I'm addressing her perimeter length, the first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna tilt her head forward. And when that head is forward, then I can start to address her length. Now, I'm gonna always work from the inside out because I really wanna maintain my corners. So as I'm working from that inside out, with that head tilted forward, I can start to see where her density is and where she needs to lose that length. And it can again be a conversation, especially if she's trying to really maintain all of that length. So with that head tilted forward, after I've put a rough outline, I'm gonna continue to soften it up. Now, knowing that I want this hair to feel soft, I'm not gonna cut it blunt from the beginning and then soften it up. I don't wanna give her multiple haircuts. So I'm gonna make sure to keep it soft from the start, so that way it ends soft and I'm not fixing something that I don't need to fix later. So as the head is tilted forward and I've refined that perimeter length, then we lift the head back up again. So we can actually see that hair exactly as it is and then continue to refine it. And you'll also notice I didn't take multiple sections. I dealt with the hair as it was. Because she's already layered, I'm not worried about too much density on her perimeter. And that perimeter is quite manageable as long as it's layered well. Now, after I've connected that back, I want to now start to address the front. So what you'll notice here is that I'm taking the head, I'm tilting it over to the side. And then from there, we're gonna preserve that by tilting the chin up to help keep that corner. And then I'm gonna tilt the chin back a little bit so I really open up the hair. So what that means is I take that back section, that's her perimeter length, and that's my corner that I'm going to use as my guide as I connect to the front. So I always want to make sure to really open up. A lot of times when we're cutting that perimeter length, we end up closing down and we cut the back with the head and the neck turned, or else we're working around the shoulders. And I really want to make sure that there's a really clean connection from the back to the front. So that space is open when I open up and back. It gives me the ability to cut that corner and connect it all the way into her angle. A lot of times when cutting length, we end up cutting the back and then the sides, and the sides end up getting shorter. So because of the way I've cut the angle by dragging the hair all the way over to the other side, I've preserved that corner length in the front. So that way I have it, and I would rather have it and not want it than want it and not have it. So after I've done both sides, I'm then just going to refine that perimeter with the head forward. I'm just going to make sure that that length is the same, and I can continue to move her head around a little bit, making sure that everything looks good. Now after I've done this, what I want to do is I really want to check the balance of the hair. So because I've done all of these layers in the back and because I've done all this work, at this point I want to really start to address her corner length and what's happening in that front. Now, when we see hair in the front with the head straight up, we don't always see the hair exactly as it is. So in this occasion, I want to really tilt that head forward. And by tilting the head forward, I can start to see that angle, and I can start to see where there's weight and there's density. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to freehand cut this. So I'm going to take that hair and I'm just going to soften that up. I'm at no point scraping or shattering the hair. The entire time I'm working through opening and closing using the fulcrum of my blade. And what I want to do is I just want to work with softening up those ends and balancing out that length. So after I've cut the angle and balanced out the initial shape, I want to start to deal with density and weight. So we've been dealing just with the surface of the hair. And what that means is I've just cut some of the ends and I've cut the shape and the perimeter length, but I haven't done anything internally. So what I want to do is I want to soften up the internal weight. And I'm going to use a technique called back cutting. So I'm taking vertical sections and I'm actually in this particular occasion just softening up the hair where there's weight. So I'm doing a lot of freehand cutting, just working through internally, grabbing where the hair is heavy, but I'm not working on the surface of the hair anymore. I'm working inside the hair. And I'm really thinking about not the external shape anymore. I'm really thinking about what's happening inside the hair. And I'm really thinking about how I'm cutting that. So I'm not scraping or shattering the hair. I'm not creating any damage to the hair. I'm actually just softening up weight and density. And I'm thinking about how that hair is going to fall and where that hair is going to move. As I'm working, just back cutting, softening up, I'm seeing how the hair responds, where there's volume that I want, where there's movement and weight that I want, and where there isn't movement and weight that I want. And this also becomes a very active participation for the client. So she starts to move her hair around, she starts to touch it, play with it, make sure that she likes it, that it feels soft, and that the hair is really doing what it wants and what we want it to do based on the haircut and the technique. That the product we have just helps support the hairstyle. It doesn't create the hairstyle. Now, as you watch this video over and over again, I really want you to pay attention to my relationship to the hair that I'm working with. That I'm not tense and I'm not very stiff. I'm nice and relaxed and I'm working softly with movement and I'm really getting rid of hair that doesn't need to be there. So if there's too much weight, soften it up. If there's too much length, soften it up. If the hair doesn't need to be there, cut it off. And as a result of these techniques, what you'll find is that you can use them to cut short hair, to cut long hair, to cut curly hair, to cut fine hair, to cut dense hair. Because what we're doing is we're really creating and controlling the weight, the density, and the texture of our haircuts.